It was almost springtime at the family farm, and the leaves were starting to appear on some of the trees. Molly was busy. She had just planted an apple tree in the garden. "There we are, finished," said Molly as she proudly looked at the young tree. Now that the tree had been planted, all Molly had to do was wait for springtime, when the sap would rise, the leaves would grow, and the flowers would bud. Then, in the summer, flowers would grow and turn into apples. Come next fall, the apples would ripen and be ready for picking. Colin the farm helper was outside in the farmyard looking for something. "Ah, there it is, thank goodness," said Colin when he saw the shovel resting against the wall. But he needed something else too. He disappeared into the tool shed to look for it. "That's odd. I'm almost certain that I left it here," he said. Then suddenly, Tech tooted his horn. "Beep, beep. Are you ready, Colin?" Ouch! Colin accidentally hit his head against the shelf, causing a terrible noise to come from the shed. It was the sounds of pots and paint and tools and nails falling down because of Colin's accident. "Oh, my poor head," he sighed as he rubbed it. "Are you all right in there, Colin?" asked Tech and Tommy, trying hard not to laugh. "Oh, you guys, you frightened me and caused a ruckus," said Colin. But even with all the crashing, he managed to find the tool he was looking for. "What's that?" asked Tech. "You'll find out in a minute once we get the thorn bushes," said Colin. "Come on."
"Thorn bushes? Why do we have to carry that prickly stuff?"
complained Tommy the trailer.
"It seems like we're always carrying sharp, prickly things. Thorn bushes today, what next?"
"Don't worry, they're young bushes, so their thorns won't be sharp. You'll see." "These are the bushes," said Colin. He placed all of them in Tommy the trailer. "Ouch! They sting! It hurts!" Tommy danced from one wheel to the next. But Tech and Colin didn't notice him. Tech just kept going and didn't slow down until he reached the field where they were going to plant the thorn bushes. "Here we go," said Colin. "This is where we are going to plant the bushes. And once they grow, the animals will be able to shade themselves beneath them. And the birds will be able to nest in them," said Tech. "Of course they will," said Colin, "and they'll eat the berries that will grow on them. The thorn bushes will be good for everybody." Colin began planting the bushes immediately. Colin's strange tool was especially for planting bushes. "There we go. One bush planted," said Colin, but they needed to plant many more. In the meantime, Molly was in the garden raking leaves that had blown all over the lawn. There are so many leaves on this lawn, sighed Molly. From bending over and getting up again and again, Molly suddenly felt a pain in her back. "Oh, brother," she said. Poor Molly. She went into the house to get some rest. "Oh, my back," complained Colin, who was still out in the field. And every other minute, Tommy the trailer moaned,
"How many more are left?"
But Tech's wheels were still working busily.
"Oh, stop complaining, everyone. We've got lots of planting to do still,"
said Tech. Back in the house, Molly was rubbing her back. "Oh dear, I'd better sit down." But when Molly sat in the chair, the leg broke and Molly landed on the floor like a sack of potatoes. "Oh, oh, oh." Out in the field, Tommy the trailer was still complaining that the thorns were poking his tummy. But Tech kept helping Colin so that they could finish. And indeed, they were almost done planting all the bushes. "Only one to go," said Colin.
"Thank goodness for that,"
said Tommy the trailer. After Tech pressed down the dirt with his wheel, the three of them stood back to admire their handiwork. But just as they were about to go back to the farmyard, Tech heard a buzzing noise, like a loud wasp. "Hush! What's that noise?" he asked, and everyone listened carefully.
"Oh, that's someone cutting wood in the forest,"
said Colin. "Cutting wood?" Tech was excited. "Yes. Would you like to go and watch?" asked Colin.
"Oh, yes, please,"
said Tech eagerly.
"I don't want to go. I want to stay here,"
said Tommy the trailer. "We won't be long," said Colin. So off he went with Tech across the fields and into the forest. "Towering treetops! These are huge trees," said Tech as he looked up at the great tall trees. "Yes, they are very tall," agreed Colin. "All the trees lose their leaves in winter, don't they?" asked Tech. "No, not everyone," said Colin. And he explained that evergreen trees and trees with pine needles kept their leaves all year round, while other trees lost all their leaves. "Oh, I see," said Tech, showing great interest. Then he jumped. "Ouch! I think I've been stung by a pine needle," he squealed. "Come along," laughed Colin, and they both walked down the forest path in the direction of the loud noise. At last, Colin and Tech saw the woodcutters, and they were both busy cutting wood with a chainsaw. "There are your buzzing wasps," said Colin. "But why are they cutting wood?" Tech didn't understand. Colin explained that wood was needed to make fence posts, gates, furniture, paper, and many other things. "And little trailers like Tommy," said Tech. "Yes, and little trailers like Tommy." But Tech had loads of questions to ask Colin. He wanted to know why the woodcutter wore a helmet with a mask over his face. But Colin couldn't hear. There was too much noise. When the chainsaw stopped, the woodcutter shouted, Timber! Towering treetops. Teck was frightened. The woodcutter's next job was to cut the branches. But their job wasn't just to cut the trees down. They had to plant trees as well. One of the woodcutters picked up a young tree and the other dug a hole in the ground. They placed the young tree in the hole and, just like that, a new tree had been planted. Well, Teck, you've learned a lot about planting trees today. Yes, I have, said Teck happily. Thanks for letting us watch, said Colin, and he shook hands with the two woodcutters. Then Teck and Colin went home. Where was Molly? And was her back better? Well, one thing was certain. The chair wasn't better. Its leg was broken. Molly had gone to visit the carpenter in his workshop so that he could fix the chair. What an interesting place. There were tools of all shapes and sizes to measure, cut, and shape the wood into all kinds of beautiful and useful things. "How are you?" said Molly. "Hello, Molly." "Do you think you can fix this chair?" asked Molly. I don't think so," said the carpenter. "But this rocking chair over here is very comfortable," said the carpenter. "Try it." "Oh, thank you very much." And Molly sat down. She rocked backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. "Oh, yes, this chair is very comfortable," said Molly. "Very comfortable indeed." In fact, it was so comfortable that Molly almost fell asleep. "Oh dear!" Molly jumped to her feet. "I'll take it." And the carpenter carried the new chair to the car for her. And after arriving back in the field and hooking up to Tommy the trailer, Teck drove back to the farmyard and machine shed. "Good night, Colin," said Teck and Tommy. "Good night, Teck and Tommy," said Colin. When Colin got into the house, he was very glad to sit down. "Fire and flames!" exclaimed Colin. Where had the rocking chair come from? He'd never seen it before. "Well, this is a very comfortable chair," he said to himself, and he began to rock backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. When Molly came into the kitchen, she found Colin fast asleep in the rocking chair.